Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unexpected Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're back with another guest episode, and we're going to talk all about social media as a wedding pro and wedding content creation. So, before we jump in, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of let people know who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Mimi. I am with Wilder Social. I'm a social media manager for wedding professionals and creatives, and I'm also a wedding content creator. I'm based out of Denver, Colorado, and I've been doing content creation and social media for about 10 years now. I started when I was 17 years old, actually, and I worked with a startup company. They were retail based in Louisiana, and the owner just noticed that I was leveraging social media really well and I knew what to do on it. And he was like, hey, can you run our social media for us? And I did. And it was super successful. We built them up to be like a multi-million-dollar company. And then I've done that a few other times. But last year I ended up in the wedding industry. I have a mentor who works with wedding clients. And I ended up doing a little work to help her out. And I just fell in love, honestly. I found myself literally like sobbing through client galleries, just like overwhelmed with emotion, and knew that the wedding industry was exactly where I belonged. So I dove headfirst into research about it and found wedding content creation. And I was like, well, this seems like where I belong. So I'll just dive into both of these things. And it's been a lot of fun, honestly.
I love that. I feel like it's such an interesting kind of area to be in, and social media is always changing and evolving, and new things are coming up, so it's something that always kind of keeps you on your toes and never the same thing every single day. And that's kind of where I want to start today. So when it comes to social media, are there any, and I guess social media specifically when we're looking at like the wedding industry, are there any changes that you've seen recently that kind of have been coming up, or you've had to adjust strategies, or clients have had to adjust strategies based on it?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, we're kind of in the middle of a really big one right now. They recently changed how their analytics work, and instead of prioritizing reach, we're now prioritizing views, which is really interesting to me. Just because for a while, like that's almost considered to be a vanity metric in some ways. The views are definitely important, but in my personal opinion, I think the reach is really important as well because I can't tell you the amount of times I've left my phone open on a reel and had it replay 1.5 million times. And I'm like, well, good for this person because they just got like 100 views out of me. But seeing that happen, that's been really interesting to navigate recently because you're almost unfortunately kind of gearing content to be watched a lot. And in my opinion, that's not my favorite thing because I am a really big advocate for authenticity and giving value to your audience instead of just kind of making this engagement bait content. I think you lose a lot of the value in social media as a whole when you kind of gear towards that. So I'm honestly really curious to see if that change actually lasts permanently through Instagram. I feel like it's almost up in the air right now. And then I've honestly noticed too recently that views by followers, that reach is going up. You're not really seeing as much reach with non-followers as I think we were about 6 months ago. And it's kind of funny because I see a lot of people complaining still about the current updates and they're like, I want to see like my followers see my content. But I'm seeing that through all of my clients' accounts that the follower views are actually up first, and then you jump into having your non-follower reach go up.
I think that's really interesting about like how they're actually shifting in the analytics, because I have noticed that I've done the same thing. I've been on, Instagram Reels or TikTok or anything like that, and have like put my phone down to go do something, and I come back like 5 minutes later in the same videos, just looping, and it's not necessarily, something that I am interested in watching 17 times, but I just like accidentally do it. But I think it's so important in my opinion to make sure that we're still putting out content that is educating people and giving them actual information rather than just the kind of like viewer clickbait trendy stuff, because that might work, in a short term or for a little bit, but in the long term, people still want that information and they still want to know things that they don't know and help get tips for, whatever it is, planning your wedding or photography, or see all of that stuff. But it is kind of interesting trying to balance that with like making sure we're still hitting all of the things that these platforms kind of want us to hit right now as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's going to be a slippery slope. Again, I'm really interested to see if, Mr. Mosseri keeps that around or if he decides to trash that idea, but it's very conflicting in my opinion because I think we saw this really big increase in the searchability of posts through Meta, especially Instagram, like really upping how their posts and that content shows up in SEO listings. And I almost feel like this is like a total step in the wrong direction from prioritizing that. So I feel like everyone right now is kind of just like, what are we doing over here? But I love Threads. Threads is great.
That has definitely been an interesting one to pop up because it is realistically it's kind of along the same lines as Twitter X in how it actually goes, but I feel like we've seen a big kind of shift towards threads and people being really like drawn to it and connecting with a lot of people. I know we've used it and have like connected with way more people than we have on, any other platform recently, and it's something where it seems like people are a little more raw and authentic and a little less filtered on threads. So it's an interesting kind of balance between all of the different platforms. It kind of shows that there's different ways that you can show up on all of the different platforms, and there's different ways that people want to see you on all of these different platforms.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think like Threads is I think still it might not advertise it, but I think it's a little bit in a beta mode still because I'm sure you've seen too like the way the algorithm on there switches up is really crazy and you have like this one side of it where there's a lot of engagement bait and there's a lot of plagiarism as well. That is one thing I'll say about Threads. The plagiarism on that app is out of control and it's very bizarre to me as well. So there's like that side of Threads, but I find that if you really put an effort into curating your algorithm on Threads, it pays off really, really well. Like if you're engaging with the right people and the posts that you're making on the app are about things that you want to be looped in with, the algorithm over there does a really good job of showing you relevant content and showing your content to relevant people as well.
I think that's such an important thing right there because I feel like when it comes to social media, we're all like, okay, I need to put this content out that, the people that I want to connect with want to see or would be interested in. But then there's also the flip side of that of you actually have to engage with them as well. Like that's what's going to kind of make it work both ways. You can't just put it out there and expect everybody to just magically show up on your page. Like you also have to go out and engage. And I feel like that might be a disconnect, a little like a gap that people are kind of skipping or missing out when it comes to social media marketing in general.
Absolutely, 100%. And I cannot tell you how many times I have seen that in the flesh where a client of mine is using that business account to do whatever personal interests they have on it. And you can see immediately how that algorithm gets messed up because you hop on their explore page and it has nothing to do with what their profession is. And to a lot of people that probably sounds like a negative because you want to get on social media sometimes and not have everything be so work focused and you want to break, but that's where like either a burner account or a personal Instagram comes into place. Like that's your place to like have that algorithm be super wacky, random, whatever. That's great. But when it comes to your business account, like you also have a responsibility to engage. And I see it with my clients who are active and they post on their stories and they DM people back and forth and they interact with pages, and that reach, it travels so far to still be engaging and like engaging with profiles that are relevant to like what you do.
There's that kind of thing of, especially when you are a solopreneur or doing, everything, you are like a personal brand basically. It can be really easy to be like, well, this is just me. I'm just going to use this account. But that's going to affect everything. Realistically is going to be based on an algorithm, one algorithm or another, depending on what app you're on. And that is going to dictate everything that happens on your page and on your feed and how other people interact and see your content and where it lands. So if you're out there interacting with a whole bunch of things that have absolutely nothing to do with the wedding industry, the odds of you actually landing on people's pages who are looking for the wedding industry are probably a lot lower. And you're really just kind of doing yourself a disservice by doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you just said, like we have a responsibility to create our own algorithm. And so often I hear like, oh my God, I cannot stand the algorithm, this new algorithm, blah, 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 blah. And like, don't get me wrong, like that definitely exists. And like to an extent, that frustration is totally valid. But at the end of the day, like, see it, experience it for a moment, see what's going on in it, and then like do your own work in it and see how that's working. Like, if I'm gauging in the way that I typically do and that's not getting my algorithm to look the way I want it to, and like, let me not even use the word algorithm right there. Like, my literal feed and explore page doesn't look the way that I want it to, then like I am doing something wrong on my part in creating what I'm seeing on social media.
I love that because I feel like there's so much kind of like, okay, social media is this way, it's going to stay that way, this is what I have to do. But social media platforms are changing literally like day by day at this point, and everything is being adjusted. So you have to be willing, as frustrating as it can be sometimes, to take a step back and be like, okay, well, this worked last week, but it looks like things are changing a little bit. Let me kind of take a look into this, figure out what I have to do and adjust. Like, just like everything else in business, we need to be able to adapt to what's happening and adjust and move forward, and not just get kind of stuck in the ways that we have been doing things.
Exactly. And I think that like goes to such a good point when it comes to the idea of hiring a social media manager. Because like one of the number one things I hear back from people when I'm on discovery calls is like, how do I see the ROI in this? And unfortunately, that's a really difficult question to answer. But part of the ROI in hiring a social media manager is that it's literally my job. It's my job to keep up with the algorithm that on Monday is one way and on Wednesday it's a different one. And then on Friday, it's like a little bit closer to Mondays. That's my job to like watch that and figure it out and navigate it. And one of the pitfalls of that is unfortunately that like I don't own Meta. I would really love to. I think that'd give me a very nice lifestyle. But unfortunately I don't, and I am at the mercy of the platform. And so to hire someone to constantly keep their finger on that pulse and know how that's going to affect your business, or even sometimes literally have no idea how that's going to affect your business and just be there to roll with the punches and navigate it and dive into the research and allow you to literally not have to do that, because as business owners, like, we know there's a million and one things to do at all times. That is, in my opinion, like the largest ROI by hiring a social media manager, is simply freeing up that time and that literal brain burden that social media can create for you.
I think sometimes we underestimate the investment of just getting our time back. And like, yes, there's a lot of things that can come out of it, but just like you said, having that brain space, having that, mental load lifted off of you, and knowing that it's being taken care of, not just like, all right, well, I'm just not going to try this anymore. Like, it's not working. I'm just going to not try it anymore and just dropping it completely. Like, having someone who knows what they're doing and is able to adapt and adjust things and is constantly in all different kind of fields, and seeing how it reacts to, and how it interacts with like different people and different industries and different accounts, and like that is so valuable to have that, like, okay, like that's taken care of, I can go take care of something else that actually needs my attention, and like I'm the only one that can do this part of my business, whatever that might be.
Exactly. And the other thing too is that like I think a lot of people get nervous to let go of social media because of that exact reason. You want to have your personal touch and you know how to speak to your audience. And don't get me wrong, like for the most part, I would say that social media management is considered a done for you service. But in my opinion, and I always tell my clients this, like, don't get me wrong, I will 100% do every single part of it for you. And you don't have to lay a finger on it if you don't want to. But the results that you're gonna get if you add your personal touch about this wedding into this caption, or you give me the background about it so I can make the hook make sense and the caption make sense, that content is going to go so much farther than just a very generic, non-personal reel would.
Yeah, I think especially when people are looking at something within the wedding industry, like if we're looking at couples, this is such an important and personal day in their life. Like, they are going to want to see your content and make sure that they vibe with your personality and they like how you do things and your process, or how things look or whatever it might be. Like it's so important to make sure that they connect with that and feel really good about that, because at the end of the day, like you're going to be all up in their business on a very important day in their life, and they need to make sure that, what they're getting out of it is what they actually want to get out of it.
Absolutely. Because also the other part is that especially in the wedding industry, it's such an intimate moment that you're getting to be a part of as a service provider. And people know that. And I think we're seeing a really big change too in spending habits right now, where people are being really intentional on where they're spending and how they're spending. And that also goes into service providers. Your social media, especially Instagram, is an opportunity not only to showcase your portfolio, but also showcase who you are, what you do, and who you do it for. And that phrase, I could literally get it tattooed on my forehead because it should be the lifeline of absolutely everything. I will give credit right here to Sam Schmidt Social because she is the one who coined it to me and I have not let go of it since. But your social media should be a place to not only show off your work, but also for you to educate your clients on the best thing for them to do on their wedding day, because that proves that you are an expert in the field, and also show them like what it looks like to work with you. Are those reels going to pop off that you're showing off a testimonial or showing off your booking process? Probably not. But they're there and they're going to serve a purpose, and people will stalk your Instagram and they will watch that reel and use that information when they go to your website to inquire with you.
And I think that is so key right there. And it's not that every single piece of content that you put out is going to go viral. Like that's not going to happen. But if you have something where you have, some more views on a couple of reels, if it is, attractive enough to people, they're going to click on your profile and go to the other information and see all of the other posts and all of the other reels and all of the other TikToks or whatever it is that you're posting, and actually be able to get that information. So it's not just about, that initial contact of how are people going to react to this single post by itself. It's the whole kind of ecosystem of your entire feed and how they interact with it once they actually land on it and see it and get all the information. Like that is just as important as this like one single video that may or may not go viral.
Exactly. Because even though it's a digital platform, there's still a human experience to be had there. And I think that is so important to keep in mind. And I think so many people just get to the point where they're like, well, I'm just going to put this out there. Like, who cares? People care. Everyone cares. Not everyone, but like your right people, they care. They 100% care.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want to flip gears a little bit and talk about wedding content creation, because I know that this is something that's kind of becoming a little more popular, starting to get a little more, more couples or and more weddings are starting to do it. So, can you start off, just in case people haven't seen it yet, and tell us what exactly wedding content creation is?
Absolutely. So, as a wedding content creator, I genuinely consider myself to be your best friend that day as a bride or groom or couple in general. Like, I am your gal. I go to your day. I show up whenever you want me to show up. I really like showing up right before you get dressed, though. And I film your entire day and all of the candid moments in between, all on my iPhone. I do have a stabilizer. I think I've gotten to the point now, though, where I don't really prefer to use it. I kind of prefer to actually have my phone in my hands. And I also have microphones with me, which we can dive into that topic in a second because that created quite a bit of heat for me when I told someone that I had a microphone. And then I also carry just like 1.5 million portable chargers with me at all times. I am so scared of my phone dying on me that I literally I'll have 2 in my fanny pack with me, and then I have 3 more in my car just in case.
I mean, you got to make sure that it's charged up. And honestly, I feel like half the time your phone lasts forever, and then half the time you're on it for like an hour, and it's just completely dead, and you're like, I don't know what happened.
I know it's so true, and like so many times too. I mean, but also just like filming videos, that's gonna drain your battery so quickly. And then if I have my little microphones, I'll show you how cute they are. It's just this little guy. But if I have them recording, then it drains it even faster. So it's crucial part of my job to have a backup battery on me at this point.
So, as a couple, what can you kind of expect from a wedding content creator? How does that actually happen? What does a day look like? What do you get the final like product and result.
Absolutely. So, from a good content creator, this is the key here. If you have a good one, you are going to get high quality video. It should be shot in 4K. If your wedding content creator is not doing this, please run. Then you will get a beautifully organized Google Drive. It's honestly one of my favorite parts of my job is uploading all my content into my Google Drive and organizing everything to folders and renaming it. And then I also offer a 2-minute recap for all of my packages. I will say I really love what I do and I love my couples. So those recaps tend to be closer to like the 3-minute range right now. And then depending on the package that you book with me, you get anywhere from 2 to 4 short form videos. And I don't use the word TikToks there or Reels there because I think that can rub a lot of people the wrong way because most of my clients who have hired me aren't really big social media people. They're honestly pretty private and low key. They just want a simple, like good wedding video that's not, more of a production is how they feel at least. And then from there, I also deliver all of that within 48 hours. It's typically within 24. 100%, you'll have all raw content uploaded and organized into the Google Drive within 24 hours. And then those edited pieces of content is what comes in that 48. But I'm a little closer to like 24, 36 right now.
So when it comes to this, how does a wedding content creator kind of interact with other wedding vendors that you might have, like wedding photographers or videographers? What's kind of the how do you work with them, and kind of the end product and the goal of what you're doing versus what a photographer or kind of a videographer would do?
Absolutely. My number one goal is to literally be out of the way. Like, I am not the star. I don't need the front row shot. It is not my place. And I know that. And I think that's why a lot of vendors I've worked with have really appreciated working with me because I have heard some not so great experiences along those lines. But I really like a collaborative experience. And I understand that right now, a lot of photo and video teams have their hesitations or possibly even gripes with wedding content creators. So when I am hired and a contract is signed, I immediately reach out to the photo team and video team that my client informed me about because I ask that also upon inquiry. I will not work a wedding without a professional photographer. It is just I turn into the planner and the photographer and everything else, and it's not for me. But I just really like making sure they know that like I am there to respect their profession and their skill set and their role in the day. I understand that it comes before mine at the end of the day. It just is what it is. And at the end of the day, I'm not looking for the same shots they are as well. I don't want the posed moments, and not to say that they're looking for all post moments, but there are a higher amount of curated moments in their galleries. Whereas mine, I'm looking for little moments. So if your husband or fiance at that point whispers in your ear during portraits and you start giggling, that's what I'm looking for. I want the little moments that might get missed in a traditional video highlight or a trailer or something like that, just the moments that you want to hold on to and replay for the rest of your life, honestly.
I feel like that's a very great distinction so that kind of people in general, as couples and also like service providers understand that this isn't necessarily like this isn't to replace a wedding photographer, and you're not going to get the same things, and realistically you don't want your entire wedding to be shot on a phone like that. Those are not the pictures that you want to end up with to look back on forever. And as a service provider, I think it's really great the like approach that you take to it of like, I'm not the main character in this ensemble. Like, I'm gonna sit back, I'm gonna get the things that I need to do, but I'm also not going to kind of interrupt or get in your way, because I feel like that could be a big hesitation with a lot of photographers, videographers, other vendors, whatnot, of, well, I don't want to be like competing for a shot or having to like move around and do all this. Like, I want to be able to just kind of function the way I do. And I think having that understanding, I think it's perfect that you like reach out to them beforehand and let them know so they don't get there and they're like, well, who is this person? Like, what are they doing here? What's going on? Like, I think that's a great kind of way to balance it out so that you get everything that you need, but then they also get everything they need. And at the end of the day, the couple still gets the most out of their investment in general. Because if you're, if either of you are competing with each other and, going back and forth, like realistically, that's going to end up affecting the product and the result that the couple who made the investment is going to get. And that's the last thing that anyone wants.
100%. And also, like, who wants to be an engaged couple and like feel tension between your vendors that day? I mean, that's I would just feel like that would be so inconsiderate on my part because again, like I recognize how important this date is and you get one shot at it for most people. That's your wedding day and there's no redoing that. And it's so important that as vendors we work together to make sure that we're having a positive client experience at the end of the day. And I will say too, I've had a lot of conversations about this because I'm also trying to educate myself too as someone who is new to the industry. And I see a lot of photo and video teams right now adding exclusivity clauses into their contracts that other people aren't able to shoot the video or photos at the wedding. And it honestly just makes me really sad on behalf of the couple because I think at that point you're preventing your couple from having something that they want at their wedding. And I think that's kind of mean, for lack of a better word. But also, on the flip side, I understand because I have heard so many horror stories with wedding content creators. And I personally am so horrified by it, hearing about people who are walking in front of videographers and walking literally like down the aisle during their dip. And it's just like, Zoom is there. Zoom is great. Also, I actually prefer shooting on 3x. If I'm being honest, the quality matches if you have one of the newer phones, which you should have as a wedding content creator. And the footage is going to look good. And if they have a video team, then like it's not the end of the world if you're not getting every single second on film. And also, like, I deliver albums that are probably, I mean, they probably get like 400 to 500 clips and photos from my day. And I really don't prioritize photos. Like, I'll snap a cute photo if there's a moment. That's great. But that's just video clips. And I mean, it's great, but do I really think my couples are watching all 500 clips of mine? Probably not. That would be really cool if they are. And if you guys are watching this and you have been, let me know. But I think it's just really important to be collaborative and also professional. And I think if you're a wedding content creator and you think that you're going into a wedding and that you are the main video person, even if there's not a videographer there, I think it's really important to know your place in order to be a good wedding content creator. I really try to blend into the background. I ask my couples what their dress code is for their guests, and I try to match that so I look more like a guest than I do a vendor. And just the mindfulness, you know, being very demure, very mindful. That is being a wedding content creator, truly, at the end of the day, though. Like, you're not there to be a spectacle. You're not there to jump in front of grandma and, make sure you're getting the bride right in that moment. It'll be okay. And I think the brides and grooms truly know that when they're hiring a content creator.
Yeah, I feel like nobody kind of goes into it expecting it to be like capturing every single second and every single moment. Like, even with photography and videography, there's going to be a ton of stuff that happens throughout the day, and every single thing isn't going to be captured. Every single thing isn't going to be videoed, but those kind of big important moments and the smaller kind of more intimate ones that happen throughout, like that's the stuff that you want to remember and capture and have to hold on to. And that's exactly what the goal of everyone there is. But do you have any tips for, I guess, either people who are looking at becoming wedding content creators or other vendors when it comes to kind of working together on the wedding day for the best experience, like vendor to vendor relationship, but also the best outcome for the couple?
I think for couples, the number one thing to do, and this falls really under any vendor, is vet your vendors. Please, please ask them about their background. Please ask to see their portfolio. In the case of like wedding content creation, I have asked my brides before if they're okay with me sharing the Google Drive with a prospective client. And some have said no, of course, which I totally understand and respect. But I have one that has said yes. And I will, if they're really uneasy, like I'm happy to share the full album with them so they can kind of get an idea of what they'll receive. but really vetting, like, please, as a couple, vet your vendors, because I have seen so many posts of people getting scammed right now, and that's by all kinds of vendors. I've seen horrific content creation. I've seen videographers who just don't show up. Same with photographers and planners, or ones that overstate their their skill set and just really don't deliver. And so I think it's really important to ask for references, reviews, portfolio. On the vendor side of things, I will say I think having an open mind is key to working with a wedding content creator. But I will also say, in the very same breath, I think it's up to us as a wedding content creators. I think it's up to us to set the standard and to educate and to prove that not only do we belong there, if that's what the couple wants, but we do also have a space in this industry. You know, if we didn't, then this trend would have fizzled out already by now. You know, you see how fast things come and go with wedding trends and with social media in general. And I mean, I've already gotten half the bookings for 2025 that I had in 2024, and I'm so thankful for that. But you know, I think just really having an open mind. But as wedding content creators, like, we have a responsibility to prove that we deserve the space and we have the skill set. And unfortunately, there are people out there who are going to set a bad example, and there's really nothing that we can do about it except for try to prove that there's better people out there. But please, couples, vet your vendors, I'm begging you.
No, I totally get that. And I feel like you're gonna find that across like every industry, every business. There's gonna be people who just aren't necessarily up to the level or are kind of giving everyone a bad look or a bad name. But I think being having that kind of openness and being like, okay, I understand that like this is a new industry in the wedding space. It's a new thing that a lot of people aren't going to be familiar with. A lot of couples aren't going to be familiar with it. A lot of vendors aren't going to be like familiar with working with wedding content creators, but there is a space for it, and if you go into it, respecting everyone's role at the wedding, like that's you're all there to help and serve your clients and give them the best experience and the best wedding days and the best memories that you can. So like just being open, not being, super closed off or being like, no, I'm not going to do this. Like you just need to go elsewhere, and kind of having that communication vendor to vendor, I think is really important.
100%. But I will say, as wedding content creators, like, the education part is it's number one on my list. I have it on my FAQs on my website, who I am and what I'm not. Specifically, I'm literally not a videographer and I'm not a photographer. I feel like photographer is like totally understood, but I actually, back to the microphones part, I actually had a videographer tell me that I am a videographer because I have microphones. And I was like, sir, please, I am literally not even close. And I mean, I have wedding videographer clients in my business, and I would never think of comparing my work to them. And that's not to say, again, that I don't do good work. I love the work that I put out there and it is quality, but I'm not a videographer. And there's a very big difference between the two services. I mean, maybe not very big, but like, there's a difference. And in my opinion, it's a very clear difference between the two things that you provide. But as wedding content creators, it is our responsibility to set the standard and define the differences. You know, I do not comment under in search of posts for videographers. That's not my place. They're not looking for me. And I can't tell you the amount of wedding content creators I see in these comment sections. And I want to reply to them and be like, this isn't for you. I also tell my brides this once we hop on the discovery call, I'm like, hey, if you're looking for something that's really crisp and clear and almost cinematic, I am not the person you need to be speaking to right now. You need to find a traditional videographer. And being confident in enough in yourself to make that distinction while on a discovery call, I think is going to pay off more in the long run than it would trying to sit here and act like you were on that same level as a videographer is. At the end of the day, that's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt your client experience. And that client's not going to leave you a raving review because you advertise yourself as something that you're just not.
I love that because I feel like that's such a big thing. And honestly, across any industry, and like when we're looking at the wedding industry as a whole, like even as a photographer, being like, I don't know if I'm the right photographer for you. Like you're looking for this style, and that's not what I do. Like being confident enough to be like, this is not what I do, and you're actually looking for this. And I think this is what's going to, give you the best day. Because, yes, we all want clients. We all want to book out our schedule. We all want to, have that income coming in. But we also have to remember that this day isn't about us, it's about these two people that are getting married. And we want to make sure that they have the best experience possible, whether that's us or not. Like, we always want to make sure that we're not, advertising something that we don't do, or saying yes just to say yes when we know that it's going to be terrible, or it's not going to be great, or we're not a great fit, or they're not going to like our style, or whatever it might be, because it's not about us.
It's not about us. And at the end of the day, like, literally who is benefiting from that experience? Because you as a vendor, like, you are not benefiting from that. You have now done a project that doesn't align with your brand or your values, or you can't even display it in your portfolio because it doesn't make sense for the client that you're trying to attract. And now you've created at least one person who is going to associate you with a not good service. And word of mouth, as we all know, is king, and it is the strongest thing, and it matters.
It absolutely matters. It can be, make or break for businesses. So I 100% agree. But thank you so much for coming on today and talking about all of this stuff. It was super interesting to talk to you, and I think this is a great kind of combination of things of, making sure that we keep up with new things that are coming out in the industry and our business, everything, to make sure we're staying on top of things and always able to kind of adjust and adapt to what's happening. But if people want to connect with you, see what you're doing, check out everything that you offer, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram. My handle is wilder_social. My website is wilder-social. Unfortunately, we have a discrepancy in my dashes, but we'll move past that. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun, and I hope that this helps both couples, industry pros, and wedding content creators.
Perfect. Well, we will put all of those links in the description below. Thank you again so much for coming on today, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Jesse.